Good start to begin with, and welcome to the evening show. I'm your host, Stephen Poon. This is our 9th episode of Spotlight Dialogue Series, organized by the Special Interest Group in Circular Society from Integrated Sustainability and Urban Creativity Center, acronym as ISUC, also known as ISUC, at Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation, APU. What a good evening to all the audience out there. We are live on Facebook now, and we are live on YouTube too. A big wave here to all the audience out there. At this time now in the virtual room with me are the regular team of ISU coming up on the discussion. As always, lots of interesting stuff on the topic of today, such as living sustainably and more consciously. We have Claire Sanslot this evening. In 1995, French-born Claire moved to New York to get a master in economics from Hunter College, New York City. In 2005, Claire moved to Hong Kong for professional reasons. In Hong Kong, recycling was not an option at the time. Without a way to manage her daily waste more sustainably, Claire decided to rethink entirely the way she's consumed on a daily basis, and has seen 2010 try to minimize her plastic paper consumption. Since then, she has been sharing her experience through all kinds of media. When Claire moved to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, she decided to open the Hive Eco Store, Southeast Asia's first zero waste concept store. Since then, the zero waste movement has grown tremendously over the region, and communities have grown much more conscious of their daily waste. Here we go. Please welcome Claire Sanslot.
Hi, Stephen.
Here we go. Please welcome. And hi, Claire. Good afternoon to you in France. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay, actually. So how did you begin your day today?
My day starts very early because indeed I'm in France right now. So
Mhm.
I'm with Hive team every morning starting around 6, 7 a.m.
That's very early, isn't it, in the morning? Yeah, for us, we are kind of late afternoon in the evening, 6 o'clock now. But never mind, I think we still can come together to have which is a common discussion. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. The Spotlight Dialogue, Claire. Let's get started to set a scene before we get into the discussion. Can you tell us a bit more story about what brought you to this specific career path?
Right. So I'm 46 right now. So just to give a little bit of a background. And as you mentioned, I did study economics and I fell in love with economics. I worked in New York in fintechs, financial tech after graduating, but that was early financial tech. And then for professional reason, I moved to Hong Kong. And I never worked. I always worked in sales, marketing, and I never worked in obviously sustainability and retail before. And like a lot of people, I guess in their 40s, I had a change of career. And
Well, every decade there's a new change for everybody life, and so am I actually. When I started from the film industry, then I moved on to the theater, to the dance and to the opera house. There was a back then when I was in Europe. Then after that, when I returned to Malaysia, they started to evolve. Then I started to get into advertising industry and branding business, and then now I come into the so-called education sectors and also pursue my postgraduate degree, and then until I get my PhD today. So there's a lot of evolving actually. So it's not just only because of 40s and then you make some changes. I believe we all will change, especially when which is every 10 years. Okay. Let's go into a little bit more, which is about this sustainable context here. So, what does sustainability means according to your practice?
right. So sustainability means many, many things, and we are all different. We're all individual, and we all have different life circumstances. We can be students at your school. We can live in a house with multiple generations. We can be single mom. Could be many things, right? So sustainability is living sustainability mainly is obviously it's 2022. Climate change is a very severe threat to the planet. Temperatures are rising. How to lower our carbon emission as much as possible. That's just actually simple. That's sustainability, trying to lower our carbon emission.
So, why is sustainability important?
Okay, sustainability is actually vital. We should be all mindful or more conscious of our daily waste. Not just waste in what we can see, is as well the daily carbon emission. And we are all releasing carbon emission on a daily basis. That's normal. We are all living being. But obviously it depends where you are on a planet. Your carbon emission will be much higher or will be much lower. Because we are all consuming on the planet. So if you're coming from a very rich country, usually you have a very high carbon emission.
Right.
So here, what I'm just saying and advocating here is, of course, I come from a very privileged country too, where we have a very high carbon emission. So who am I to tell you what to do? I am not there to tell you that. I'm just saying, on top of it, I have 3 kids, so it's not helping on carbon emission. But here I'm just saying we all have to be much more conscious on the way we're living. And mainly if we are someone who used to, like I did in the 90s and in 2000, I used to be someone with a probably very high carbon emission because I lived at the time in New York and I was a high consumer. So now I'm much more conscious about it.
Yeah, this is actually remind me also when I was in Europe, I was in Germany and in England, and I wasn't have this kind of awareness as well. So then now lately, because I was a little bit more conscious because of the climate change, then you get a bit more attention on that. Okay, that's another perspective to look at this being sustainability. In Malaysia, is very odd, right? You need to be very expensive to be sustainable. So I'm not sure about what is your understanding, probably from your point of view, since you have working out your career in this part of the region, and also you are European. Can you share with us, probably the audience out there want to know that, do you need to be rich to be sustainable?
That's the thing. So that is the belief worldwide, not just in Malaysia, that you need to be rich to live more sustainably, to be more conscious, to make more effort, which is true. It's absolutely true. Rich people should be much more conscious. They have much more spending powers. They are more educated, hopefully, and they should be much more conscious, and they have more time to devote to that lifestyle. But at the same time, because I lived in Southeast Asia, and for me, it was a very, very good experience because I really wanted to offer this lifestyle to as many people as possible. So to me, how do I sell products that are sustainable at European, American prices? So I would sell only to the 1% of the population. That's not a good business model on top of it. So my goal was to then, I wanted to have as many customers as possible in the region. So I need to lower the price. So at the Hive, for listeners who do not know what I do for a living, I'm the founder of the Hive Eco Store, which is at the time the first zero waste concept store in Southeast Asia back in 2016. So we were launching a really new concept store, new lifestyle, new way of consuming, much more conscious. So it was a lot of education at the beginning back in 2016, but now it's 2022. People are very much aware of this lifestyle now. It's not foreign concept. When we tell them zero waste living, they sort of know, they have an idea of what it is. But at the same time, I couldn't sell American, European brands, Aussie brands in the store. I mean, we still do, to be honest, but I needed to create as well products that were targeting the Southeast Asian market. My goal was not just to have few very fancy customers. The goal was to give zero waste products or sustainable, reusable, compostable products to as many people as possible. On top of it, it makes more economical sense and business sense. But that was the goal. So what we did at the Hive is, over the past 6 years, we launched new products that would be very affordable. So like a few years ago, we launched the first menstrual cup in Malaysia, and it's been released for $80, which is less than half the cost in Europe.
Claire, do you think that when you yes, it is a kind of high cost because of how people try to reverse the way how it should be done according to the past? Would that be people don't be bothered about this anymore because I need to spend so much money for being sustainable? So should I just ignore that, or should I just so what is the cultivation, what is the educational prospect here to make sure that the people living surrounding us, they have this consciousness? What is your advice?
So I think, the first 2 years, to go back to the journey, and by experience now, the first 2 years were very hard. It was all education. So from 2016 to 2018, education. And then actually people really understood the message, and really people really wanted to consume differently. We reached out a lot of people, and they're part of all the angels of the zero waste movement, Hive movement, whatever you want to name it. We have so many advocates in all of Malaysia, because at the same time, Malaysia is very lucky and very blessed. We have amazing weather.
Indeed. Sometimes we look at that.
I know.
Okay.
You have water every day. You have sunshine every day.
Yeah, it's true.
A very lucky country.
Yeah, it's really blessing. There's no earthquake,
No earthquake, no typhoon.
Natural resources is good. Just sometimes we get quite a bit of floods, occasionally. I think other than that, it's not bad actually.
We're very protected indeed. So we're very blessed. So when you're very lucky, you don't understand how lucky you are, right?
Yeah, Claire. Okay, we change another perspective to look at this. What do we mean when we talk about sustainable living?
So when I mean talking about sustainability is so how to lower our carbon emission on a daily basis. So what here you have to do for everyone who's listening here, you have to do a little bit of an audit on how is your lifestyle. What do you do? If you use a car, if you use public transportation, if you walk, if you take takeout, what is in your trash? A trash audit is always good. So a little trash audit is, you look at what is in your bathroom trash, your kitchen trash, or if you're at school, what is in the trash, and see how you can avoid those products. So here I would say you do a trash audit. That will be number one. Two, always have your little zero waste kit with you. What I mean by zero waste kit is like if you go for takeout, you bring your lunchbox, you bring your tumbler, those kind of little kits you always have in your car. If you go for grocery shopping, always have the shopping bags in the car, those kind of little zero waste kits everywhere with you. So it's always handy, and you can't say, I forgot my kit. Oh, I forgot my bag. I forgot my bottle, all those kind of things. Then something that we don't talk often, which is very strange. But Stefan, if I'm asking you, what is the number one pollutant on the planet Earth? Who's the number one culprit here?
I think it's a food waste, isn't it? According to my understanding, because the food waste is
actually very high,
food
and
waste
we can do something about it.
Food waste is quite serious in Malaysia.
True.
This is how I discover, and also there's a lot of hotel restaurant around, so and I quite often went out for dining. So and sometimes I see the way how people wasted the food is really serious, especially the hotel chain. Hotel chain is a big waste. They had tons and tons of food wasted. Every night, every week. But of course they have something else to do for the food. But I'm not sure where all the food gone. But I know that the food waste is quite serious in Malaysia. Yeah. This is my understanding. Yeah.
Because again, Malaysia is very blessed. We have abundance of food, and it's very affordable.
Okay, Claire. Let's look at this. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
You said food waste. It's actually not food waste, but food waste is on top 5. It's actually animal consumption. It's mainly beef. So the number one thing you can do today to lower your carbon emission is just to eat less meat and less dairy products.
Yeah. So we should go for vegetarian, isn't it, nowadays?
Yeah, I mean it's not asking a lot of effort. It doesn't cost you money. It's actually usually healthier to eat definitely less beef. And just having having a higher plant-based diet that immediately impact the level of carbon emission you're releasing. So it doesn't cost you anything here. It's just to be more conscious. So it's a word of like being more conscious living, just having a more plant-based diet.
Yeah, exactly. This is the so-called kind of sustainable living. So let's get into a little bit more in depth about this sustainable living context. The term sustainable living has a different synonymous, including like earth harmony living or net zero living, according to what you just mentioned. Sustainable products and lifestyle choices equate to a lower carbon footprint, which is you have mentioned that. According to the research, sustainable living describes a lifestyle that attempts to reduce an individual's or society's use of the Earth's natural resources and one's personal resources. So, which is you have emphasized that. There are endless examples and decisions that we can all take in order to live more sustainably, some of which include composting. You mentioned that, reducing the volume of the resources that we use, adopting clean energy resources, eliminating single-use plastic items from our everyday life, which is you have emphasized that, supporting our local economy, and eating less meat, which is you mentioned that, are also examples of the sustainable lifestyle choices. Okay, now, how can we actually make sustainable development a reality, especially surrounding with all these, which is amazing things happening surrounding us?
Right. So how can we make Include all of this in our lifestyle? You mean eating
Yeah,
less meat?
how can we actually make sustainable development a reality, in fact?
Okay, so it has to be the private sector and the public sector together.
Mhm.
Here we're going to talk about just us, the private sector. On the private sector basis, so we can do a lot. And mainly living in Malaysia, to be honest, again, we have water, we receive water and we receive sunlight every day. So we should all be, every household should be on solar panel energy, because again, we have sunshine every day. When you see Germany, who barely has any sunshine and has
Yeah,
so many to do in
yeah, I
Germany,
lived
right?
there for 4 years. I know that.
And they have much more solar panel than Southeast Asia, where you have
Yeah, yeah, it's
barely
true.
any sun. I mean, they're struggling.
Especially in the southern region part of Germany, München, actually. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, please.
No, so there is definitely a lot we can do on individual. And here, if we're talking to the students here, students will come with solution. I mean, I really truly believe in this generation will come with better solution on how to remove this carbon emission and how to find solution to have application tech, anything, AI, anything to help us to fight this climate change. But of course, the number one thing would be as well to move to renewable energy, which we have abundance of in Malaysia. Again, we have hydro, we have water with
Mhm.
electric energy. We can have water if we have water every day, so we can have energy, and again, we have sunshine every day.
No,
So
I was wondering how sustainability can be measured. Is it measurable? Is it some kind of like
it is
there's an
measurable.
index and yeah, how?
Yeah, it is measurable. It is quite a lot of data, of course, to gather. But
Hmm.
now you have so many apps, so many. I mean, the technology is there. We can measure
Hmm.
every day. You have few apps. I know it exists in Europe, so I think it's the same for Southeast Asia, where you can calculate how much carbon emission you release on a daily basis. If you have lights on, if you have the heater or the cooler on, what food you're eating as well. I just was reading a couple of days ago in BBC News on the app, you had a full
Hmm.
report on veganism. And they
Hmm.
calculated everything you eat from where it was grown, even if it's cheap from the other side of the planet, the results are still the same. The data is there. If you're vegan, which I'm not, I'm a flexitarian. If you're vegan, you have a much lower carbon emission, no matter what, than someone who
Yeah,
eats
you're
a lot
right.
of meat. And even if
It's
your
true.
meat is grown locally, but you're vegan, the food is shipped from the other side of the planet, it's undeniable. So you can get the data, you can figure it out through many
Hmm.
apps you have now on the market on how much carbon
Hmm.
emission you release every day. If you're taking, I know in France we have a new app, and I think it's so awesome. I'm talking to students here because I know students
It's
love
all
it.
right.
They're always looking
Go
for the
ahead,
next,
please. Even
yeah,
the
they're
adult
always looking
professional,
for
they like
the
it
next
too.
tech company they can create. So in France now you have an app that calculates all the transportation, the carbon emission you release when you use transportation. If you walk, if you bike, if you are in scooters, because here you have scooters everywhere. If you take the buses, public transportation, subway, or all those kind of things, or if you have the car. And in Europe, we have, which I take a lot now, we have BlaBlaCar, which is an app where you're co-sharing the car. So I had a meeting in Paris a couple of weeks ago. I'm not based in Paris. And I was looking at the train, and the train was very early and it was very expensive. And then I was like, hey, I'm going to try the co-sharing car. And the app is so well done. They tell you, hey, I'll be leaving at this point, and you have the reviews of the drivers, and it's not a murderer. And they drop you at such space in Paris, and you pay like 11 euros. You have so many ways now. And again, to the students, you can really work this for the Malaysian market or the Kuala Lumpur market.
Mhm.
So many ways to cut down on your carbon emission. I just signed up for another app. It's called Phoenix. So you have the BlaBlaCar, which is all about co-sharing ride shares. And then Phoenix now, it's all the supermarkets and, bakeries, butchers, anything around my neighborhood according to my location is according to geolocation. At the end of the day, they tell you what hasn't been sold and they create baskets already. So for €5 instead of like 10, you have all the items that haven't been sold during the day. And that's where you fight food waste.
Great. Claire, one of the most important aspect of living more sustainably is making the conscious decision to simply consume less, which is you have emphasized multiple times. Practicing conscious consumption, in other words. So becoming a conscious consumer may seem disarmingly simple, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is always easy, especially in a culture where we are bombarded with advertisements that tell us we will be happier, better looking, more popular, healthier, or smarter if we buy a specific product. Billion of ringgits out there, advertising budgets are aimed at making us feel like we need more stuff. Is the intentional deterioration of product quality a solution to the problem of overproduction, or rather generates overproduction?
Here we're producing obviously way too much. We don't need we're talking about fast fashion, we're talking food, we're even furniture. We have the fast fashion of furniture in Malaysia. I mean, it's everywhere, right? Obviously low-cost airline, which allows us to travel the world for very cheap. When our parents' generation, it was quite expensive for them to travel. Us, we're like, oh, let's have a weekend in Phuket. It's very easy. So here, in order to curb that, there are a lot of ways. This is a mental exercise, and I know we all have to do this journey. I've done it late in my life. For me, again, I came from New York before, and I lived in New York at the time of Sex and the City show. So it was a massive consumerist time in my life. And then I lived in Hong Kong, which is as well a very huge consumerist society. But when I moved to zero waste, for me, and it doesn't necessarily goes hand in hand, but for me it went hand in hand, I moved to minimalism as well. And to me, minimalism changed my life. I can talk about minimalism for forever as well, which is not
I like that as well. I like that movement.
I won't bother you with that. But for listeners, and once I moved to minimalism, I found out I didn't have the desire anymore for all those things. I just need a few key pieces that made me happy and they were quality in my house to find happiness. And advertising does not work on me because I moved to minimalism. So I don't know, my brain is very clear on that. So, unless it's something that's going to add a lot of value to my house, meaning often either I'm going to save money or I'm going to remove waste, I'm not going to be interested. So here's my journey. My journey was minimalism, and there's a lot of documentaries on that on YouTube for people listening. Capsule wardrobe, all those kind of things. I encourage everybody to start looking at it because it's going to help you for life here. Because of course we live in a super consumerist society.
Yes, it is. Yes, we are.
And I have 3 preteen teenagers. Preteens. So I have one 12-year-old and 2 10-year-olds. So I have twins, what we call the twins, which is a very difficult age. And they are born in that lifestyle. So for them, they don't ask for things, like they're not that interested because then they've been very young. They've been like, they know the cost of fast fashion. They know so kids are for them, it's animals, right? You're telling them what is in the sea, how much plastic is in the sea, then it really touches them. And they have a lot of empathy on that one. So they're much more conscious. But again, they were born in that environment. And for us, like the clothes we buy, I buy all my kids' stuff secondhand, right? All the clothes, I buy them from friends of mine who have older kids. So those are great way to save money. So people, to go back to the conversation, which is like living sustainably, is it expensive? I just mentioned I'm doing car share. I can get my food baskets from for half the cost with this app, where it's like items that have been sold in a day and it's half cost. In order so it doesn't go to the garbage. I'm getting all my kids' clothes secondhand, myself too. So here it's like you actually save a lot of money. And on top of it, I moved myself to minimalism. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean minimalism doesn't mean sustainability as well. But for me, it did in my journey. So the way I consume now, I think probably my household, which is 5 people plus a dog, is probably releasing less carbon emission that I was releasing by myself in New York, back in the 90s, early 2000. You know what I mean? Because we are so much more, when it's not even careful. That's just the way we live now.
Claire, how can we encourage sustainable consumption behavior according to your understanding?
I think you just have to be very relaxed about it, because we have to be very careful with eco-anxiety, mainly around the young crowd. So for the listeners who are students here, we don't want to give them to be too stressful. The future is already quite stressful. They already live in a digital world where you have a lot of social media, which can add a lot of stress to your life. So let's not add more stress. Mental health is extremely important. But I think it's part of mental health again. Minimalism. It will clear your mind. Trust me on that one. You won't feel like you will follow all those influencers who are pushing you to buy things. You will not receive any joy from that. So your mindset will change. So I would encourage you to move to that more, to have a slow journey. It can't be too drastic, because we come from such a severe consumerist society. You have to take
the power of consumerism nowadays. Okay, Claire. Let's look at the rules and regulation perspective. Is it possible to implement public policy to reduce consumption?
It is possible to reduce consumption, maybe not, but to consume better, yes. You can have tax breaks if you have a house that is much better isolated, because I see in Malaysia, like my house, we had like this gap between the front door. So all the energy was coming out. If you have AC on, nothing is preserved. So you can have tax breaks if you have better isolation of the house. So the house stays cooler longer and you use less energy. You can have, obviously we can have garbage collection with composting inside, because they're collecting the waste, they're collecting the recycling waste, but they do not collect the composting waste. So in Malaysia, a lot of people have gardens, and then they're putting all the trash from, all the leaves, the grass, everything in plastic bags, which you know how it is. You put living waste, like organic waste, it's like food waste, in a plastic bag. You're creating a time bomb. It's methane, which is going to be released ultimately in landfill. So it's extremely toxic. This is why composting is so important. If we don't want to ask all our citizens to compost, which can be challenging for students who live in multiple generational family, or do not have a garden, who do not have a balcony, then the city has to collect the compost, and we need bins for that, which is implemented in different countries, and cities have experiencing it. So we can just copy that model.
Claire, since you had mentioned you had been travel quite a few continents for the past few decades. According to your experience, I believe you have seen a lot things happen, the differences between the European, the Asian, the Southeast Asian, even the American. So what are the main determinants of sustainable consumption throughout so many years of your practice?
What we need, you can leave much more. The number one, we can copy, the Danes are very good. The Swedish are very good in building smart cities.
Yes, they are.
So it's all about, and Southeast Asia, we're building constantly, right? Europe is already built. So there is nothing we can do. We're stuck with old buildings, which have, it's very complicated. It's much easier to build a building.
Heritage. We talk about heritage.
Rather than, so Southeast Asia is lucky in the sense we're building everything. You know, like we have a growing population, which Europe does not have. You have a growing population, you need to build better, and you can have smart cities. So
Yeah,
smart
yeah, yeah.
cities are all about, and many studies have been done on it, and we can just again, we don't need to spend a lot of money in doing research on it because it's been done before. Of course, you adapt it to your market. But smart cities are obviously mainly based on renewable energy, mainly based on transportation that is together, or a
Yep.
lot of bikes. I was again in Belgium. I mean, I bike everywhere where I am now because you have bike lanes. You know, you can't bike in Kiel. I have a bike in Kiel, but I can't bike in Kiel. It's so dangerous.
No, you can buy, but you will get accident. Yeah.
That's right. It's too dangerous. I'm like, that's such a shame because I would bike. I know it's very hot, but I don't mind. But I would bike everywhere. But because there is no bike lane, and it's a shame because our city is quite recent, so we could have included the bike lane, and we're still building it. So we can include now the bike lane to everywhere we're building new roads and newer neighborhoods. So we have to make sure we have the bike lanes. And we have more and more, because now in Kiel we do have the scooters we can share as well, but it's not well implemented. People don't quite use them, and they toss them, which is the same a bit everywhere, but we don't have enough stations and stuff. So smart cities can be done, mainly for cities like Kiel, Penang, and Johor. I truly believe the population will follow, because right now we're starting to really see climate change in Malaysia. We never had such big floodings before.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Especially the last few weeks or even a few months ago. So it's getting really not the same anymore. So I was wondering what happened. So we have to really have a consciousness about all the changes. So otherwise, we will get into this kind of crisis or public catastrophe.
That is right, and those are very expensive to the government. It costs a lot because people can't go to work, so it has a cost on society. People can't go to work. We lose a lot of, obviously insurance are going to be very upset soon, or they're going to say we can't insure you anymore because every year your basement is flooded again, and we can't insure that. We can't insure cars anymore because the car is ruined, and it's been the third
floods,
time in 10 years due to flooding. So there will be a point where all those actors will come together and say we need to do something about this flooding. And that means we need to have more places to collect the water as well, because deforestation, obviously if you remove the trees and you have a massive deforestation, the water cannot evacuate anymore. The trees and the soil was the one absorbing all this water as well. Now you remove all that, you're having a waterproof layer, and nothing gets absorbed anymore. On top of it, if you have a sewer system full of plastic containers, from plastic bottles, takeout containers, choked up with all the water, it's calling for flooding. So it's all those little things we can work together, and we can do it now. To me, I'm not doom and gloom. This can be done today. Like we can remove all this plastic trash that is clogging the sewers by just being more conscious and bringing your containers, having a reusable container always with us, and having our delicious food, because Malaysian food is so delicious everywhere.
Thanks for that. That's a little compliment here. Okay, Claire.
Yeah, no, you know what? I really truly believe, Malaysia is actually sadly the champion of trash in Asia. We are the one creating the largest amount of trash.
We are the number one. Right. Today we are living in a changing world, one where our environment is on the brink of a crisis, which is you have indicated. Every day, this requires us to make choices aimed at adopting a more sustainable lifestyle, one that allows us to enjoy a healthy and full lifestyle, while at the same time respecting the world around us. But how can we lead a sustainable lifestyle? And is sustainable living as difficult as we imagine?
So exactly. Just few things. You refuse the trash to come into your house. Having reusable system having your zero waste kit in your car or in your house. When you leave the house, you take your house keys. You take your reusable bottle, you take your reusable containers, uh, you refuse the meat. You try it as much as possible. It's if you're someone who eats a lot of meat, a lot of eggs, a lot of dairy, just take it gradually, but just try to curb this need for meat all the time, and just try to go for get your protein from lentils, pulses, tofu. I mean, in Asia we have a lot of luckily we have a lot of substitute for animal-based protein. When you get your coffee and you ask for soy milk rather than dairy, like those kind of things, those little swaps actually have a big impact. And education, talking to your friends about it, having students here. The students can do clothes swappings, they can do tech gadget swappings, because I'm sure their house is full of little tech things that we keep on buying, because they're so cheap. We can do some swapping or buying from each other's, having these events. From experience, the clothes swappings are very, very popular among the students, and it's super fun to organize. Not necessarily swapping. It can just sell your clothes for 2, 5, 10 ringgits. It doesn't matter, as long as you buy and sell from each other. So you sort of change your wardrobe. It's still fun. It's a nice gathering with friends. You organize that between students. If you do have a canteen at the university, see if they can compost and have a composting system. And if you have biology students or environmental students, try to see with them how we can organize a composting system. If you can't compost at school, now we have a lot of composting centers in the city. Talk to them, and they're going to collect your compost at your school, depending on how many kilograms you collect every day. But it could be interesting. Start growing some food as much as possible at the school, of course. But again, swapping, refusing, reduce. Go for a more plant-based diet, which now I find a lot of restaurants in in KL, offer more and more plant-based options. Often you have now, even the fast food now has a plant-based options burger. So those are very important. You go for those. If the customers do not follow, they will not keep on having it. So you really have to make sure you buy those plant-based, so it becomes really a staple. So all those little things makes you a more conscious citizen and conscious consumer. This is how you live more sustainably, and your journey is different from the person next to you, because we all consume differently. We all eat different food. We wear different kind of clothes. And again, we can live in a multi-generational household, or we can live by ourselves. So it's very different. But we definitely need to take that journey.
Yeah, thank you. I think you have which is a highlight. This really important, which is what does it mean to live more sustainably, which is the way how we lead our sustainable lifestyle. And also sometimes it's not because of how difficult we imagine to being sustainable living. It's just the way how we born. If we born in the woods, can you imagine that? I think that's not an issue. We will have no dialogue here today, because we born in the urban city, so we get used to that. We born in this kind of environment, so we get used to that. Then we take along when we grow up. So now we need to reverse. I think it sounds a bit difficult, but not like people like when you begin from the woods. Just imagine that. So now, yes, you have highlighted many these issues, and also and we try to get to understand what does it mean to live more sustainably here. Okay, good. Right. Claire, I think let's open up our dialogue to question from the audience. Let's see, what do we have? We have a question. What would be the incentive for policy makers to move towards sustainability when there is not enough social demand? So this is the question from my colleagues, Daniel.
Daniel, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Sorry, and I think here there is demand if you give tax break. No, so if
Money
because here
works.
you're talking policy maker, so here you're talking government,
Hmm.
and it's all about tax break. And as mentioned before,
Hmm.
if you know how now you can rate your house, because it's usually house, apartment. You can rate them on there's a scale for it on energy scale, right? Like the most polluting house, the least polluting house. And then the government gives you a tax break, or the government gives you, which it does in the West, tax incentive to isolate your house better, to put solar panel on your house. You get discount for that. So to make your house more sustainable, the government will help you with that. So I think here it's a win-win for everybody. So the government gives you a tax break to put solar panel or water collector. We still do not have the rating of the house in Malaysia, but I think it will come soon. Because I own an apartment in Malaysia myself, and I would love to know what is the efficiency level. I would love to know, is it super? It's not. It is well isolated, but it could be better to me. But I do not know how to scale it and how to rate it. So here, the government needs to be behind to tell me this is what I can do better to be more energy efficient. And maybe, you see it right away as a consumer. Your electricity bill at the end of the month, if it's much lower, but you still feel as cool as the previous month, but because now you have a better isolation in your flat, consumer will follow. It's simple. Follow the money. It's always there. So we can't wait for everybody on the planet to be eco-conscious. That would be impossible. But we can definitely have tax incentive. That's a good question, Daniel, though.
What about Claire? Another way to look at this practice, do you think reward system works apart from taxes?
I think it does.
I'm not sure actually. So it's just kind of
but
like
I
something
prefer,
come across in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, reward works, but I prefer, and that's the economist talking here, I prefer tax break, and I prefer cost right away. Like, when Malaysia put the levy cost, the cost on the plastic bag, from 1 month to the next, 90% drop on plastic bag consumption from supermarkets. Because right away, you're asking us to pay for it. So people will complain, but that's okay. Let them complain. Within few months, they will never forget to bring their shopping bag when they go to the store.
What about there is we can't get rid of this plastic bag. Plastic bag is really an issue here, but there's a lot of innovation comes in here. They have this biodegradable plastic, so which is they are encouraging us to consume more plastic because there is a biodegradable plastic because it will just dissolve, which is eventually. So, what is your point of view about this biodegradable plastic?
I think those are obviously better than made out of petroleum plastic, but still, why? We don't need them. We already have all the bags in the world we need to carry our goods in, our food in. Those biodegradable plastic are usually made out of corn, if you look. Corn requires land, pesticides, herbicides to grow. Again, petroleum. Because pesticides and herbicides are made out of petroleum products. So all fossil fuel, again, a lot of water, which is very scarce right now on our planet. And then we need labor tractors and all the machinery to collect it. And then we need a factory to make it. So it's a lot of energy to be spent, again, on a single-use item. When we all have our shopping bags at home, in our car, in our kitchen, to just reuse. Reuse here is always better. But again, it's still better than 100% petroleum-based plastic bag. But you still need fossil fuel to make those bags, So
yeah.
And on top of it, some of those bags, in order to be biodegradable, you need oxygen. If you put them in a locked landfill with absolutely zero oxygen, they will be there for centuries. It's not going to move.
Right. Okay, let's talk about you, okay, Claire. Look 5, maybe 10 years into the future and give us your prediction. Will conscious consumerism be the next big thing? And why or why not?
I'm not sure it will be conscious consumerism. To me, we will be consuming differently, yes. Maybe it will be a bit forced down on most of the population as well. But it's like fur. We were not like now, obviously in Malaysia, we don't wear fur, it's too hot. But like now, you can't wear fur, right?
Wow, you cannot, you ban actually.
Why is it bad?
Well, because it's animal killing. You have
That's right.
you kill and
So
you kill
I think
animals, so you
in 10
just
years'
rip off the skin,
time,
you put in the clothes. It's not good. Yeah.
100%. So I think in 10 years' time, it would be the same kind of thinking for like someone working with a plastic bottle. Like, it's like killing the earth. You can't walk. It's very poorly seen. You know what? It's really bad. Like, it's like wearing a fur coat. You look bad. So there will be, within the next 10 years, I really believe the way we change consuming it, again, like the fur coats or whatever is in fur, people will be much more conscious and have a much more important sense of what is acceptable and what is not anymore, which is good. I wish the problem is it's a bit too late. We need to do it now. That's the thing. So it's a complicated matter, but here to encourage everybody, and because we just have a short time left, start being more conscious of your waste. You will gain from it because, as mentioned, financially, we swap, we refuse, you consume less. Again, if you move to plant-based is cheaper than animal-based diet, right? Having some meat is more expensive than soy or lentils if you want to get your proteins, right? So you do save money down the line. You can just clean your entire house with white vinegar and baking soda. Those cost zero. It costs, you go to DIY store or what's the name of this big store? I forgot. Dr. DIY? Mr. DIY.
Mr. DIY, yeah.
You buy all your cleaning products, which is actually just two: white vinegar, baking soda, and you clean your entire house with that. It's entirely safe for your lungs, for you to breathe, and super cheap, and it cleans very well the house. So all those things are, if you want, you will save money, and it's much. You're becoming a conscious without even knowing it. If you just do it for the money, you're becoming a conscious consumer here, because you do swapping, you refuse, you bring your own container, you remove a bit of the meat from your diet and the dairy products from your diet. All of this, it will have it. You will see it on your budget at the end of the month. Your wallet will be heavier here because you will be spending less by definition. So conscious living, it's really up to you. Living sustainably, again, we are all different, but to me, it doesn't have to be expensive. Not at all.
Yeah, it's really but of course it really depends how you position the ideas of conscious or consumerism. Okay, Claire, you have been doing this for decades and for many years, from the west to the east, from the north to the south, and here we are. You are in Malaysia here. What would you like? What is your advice actually? What is the one thing people can start doing today to waste or consume less? What is your advice?
So refuse. You think about the R's are easy to remember. The refuse, the reuse, rot for composting, reduce. Recycle would be last because it's very hard to recycle in Malaysia. And anyway, it requires a lot of energy to make again usually a single-use product. Refuse, reduce, reuse, rot, repair. Think about all the R. And eat less meat and go for a plant-based diet. There's no R for that.
Being vegetarian is not that easy, especially when you're born, you're non-vegetarian. And like me, but I'm not that kind of meat eater heavily, but I do consume meat. But I occasionally do go for vegetarian, but again, but still, it's like after 1 month, 2 months, right, I still automatically I will get some kind of meat into my stomach. It just kind of automatically. I have no idea. I can't stop because this is how I born. I must get something into my
That's
stomach,
okay.
especially. Yeah,
Stephen,
but not like heavy. Like
I am myself, I'm what we call a flexitarian. I'm
yeah,
trying
yeah,
not
yeah.
to eat meat or much dairy product. I do eat fish,
Mm, mm,
but I'm just conscious about it, so I try not to
yeah,
eat it.
yeah, it's
That's
true,
all.
it's
But
true.
it will sneak in my diet mainly if I'm outside, and I can't quite control all the food I
Yeah, it's
eat
true.
because
Yeah, I try
you're
to
in a social
reduce to the
environment.
minimum as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's flexitarian, and here you're conscious. You're like,
Mm.
you try to avoid it, but sometimes you don't want. I mean, you have to balance it out. If
Yeah,
some
that's
people
true.
are
It's true.
vegan, and that's beautiful, but you can't expect
Mm.
the rest of the planet to be. So
Yeah, yeah.
here it's just, yeah, being more conscious about it. And
It's
when we
true.
have
Probably, I think
obstacles,
when I get older, right, and then I will get which is a lesser, even lesser meat than what I used to be. I think age is really is can prove a lot. So especially as when your digesting system is not really running well anymore, then you try to avoid this kind of meat eating. So you will go into a bit more simpler and like vegetarian stuff and all. So yeah, I think and especially I feel that way. So especially every like 5 years to 6 years, right? Your diet system very different. So
very
okay,
true.
yeah, Claire, let's slowly get into the which is to the end. Let's conclude this. A little sharing here after all this little talk, and also I make some notes as well in the meantime. The findings show that less than 30% of consumer are considered sustainability conscious. 58% are in a transition phase, while 13% fell into the category of non-conscious, according to the research. To make sustainable decision and action in everyday daily life, individuals need to have knowledge of sustainability, which as you have emphasized there, awareness, consciousness of their action, and be active citizen, which is you have mentioned this when you started the whole dialogue. An educated workforce like the university armed with the sustainability perception and competency are in an asset for society and businesses poised to respond to the sustainability call. Sustainability should not be only a utopia without the E in our societies, but a utopia with the E in telling a life with ecological and social health and prosperity at a local level and the regional level, as well as the global level. On that note, we will have to call it a day for today. And so, for our technical master and ISUC Circular Society, the CS team, a big wave from here. Thank you so much. All right, that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining us. Claire, it is absolute my pleasure as well as a privilege.
Thank you, Stefan, and thank you, the team. The pleasure was all mine.
Merci beaucoup. We will talk.
Merci.
We will talk about this. Right.
Au revoir.
Spotlight Dialogue series organized by the Special Interest Group in Circular Society from Integrated Sustainability and Urban Creativity Center at Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation, APU. Till then, take care and each other. Have a nice evening.